Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about doing some maintenance with your 3D printer. You should have received a maintenance kit with your 3D printer. It would be 2 brushes, a nozzle unclogger, a set of tweezers, and some extra nozzles. The first thing I want to start with, which I think is one of the really important things, is cleaning your bed in between your prints. I think a lot of people don't do that, and I'm going to express how important it is to do that. Cleaning this, when you print something, you know, it leaves a little bit of residue. There's always dust. If you don't print something for a week or so, it leaves dust, and then you're going to have problems with the print sticking. You're going to have a problem with it lifting up, warping, things like that. And it's really important. I use just regular rubbing alcohol. I put it in a spray bottle that I get. I spray it down. I use a microfiber rag, and I make sure it's really clean. It's really, really important. I wouldn't press super hard because you could mess up your leveling, but just make sure it's really, really clean. That's really important. The next thing let's talk about is the nozzle. In between prints, what I always do is I always look at my nozzle. You can use the rod in the back and, you know, turn it clockwise and, you know, raise it up. You can look at your nozzle. This is really what it looks like inside there. And this is actually inside there. And this is where your little nozzle is. And these are your nozzles. This is your heat block. And then, of course, your filament tube goes right in the top here and then comes and it squirts out the bottom. So pretty much what's really important is to keep this clean. There's a rubber boot that goes over top of this, which kind of helps protect it down here. And then the bottom sticks out a little bit. So what you want to look for is if you're having problems with your print or anything like that, what you're going to want to do is look underneath. If you see any extra pieces hanging or anything, dirt or the filament or whatever, that's what the brushes are for. The silver brush is much firmer than the gold brush here. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to rub that. Now, I personally go through the menu, go to prepare, heat up the nozzle to about 190 degrees is fine. You can even do 175. What you want to do is you just want it warm enough so that when you rub the brush over that, it will take off any excess filament or any debris that's stuck on there or anything that's on there. And so you're just going to wait till it warms up and you're just going to rub it on there, or rub it and then rub it off. This is the softer one. And basically that's just going to keep it clean. And you don't have to do that all the time. I would say, you know, sometimes I'll have a bad print and it'll get loose here and it'll just be stuck under here and a mess, and that's when I'll do it. I'll make sure it's nice and clean. You don't have to rub super hard. Once it's warmed up, it should just come right off, but you just want to make sure that it's clean. That's really, really important. The next thing I want to go over is unclogging your nozzle head. So if you find that your print head gets clogged and, you know, whatever you do, you can't get, you know, any filament coming out of it, you got to heat it up, nothing's coming out and so forth, then you could have a print nozzle clogged. And there's a couple things to address that. The first thing I do is you must heat it up to temperature. You must heat it up to, I would go about 210, maybe even 215 to heat it up because you want it really hot, and leave it hot for about 5 minutes before you do this. And then remember, this is inside your print head here. And what you're going to want to do is take one of these little needles here, and they're very sharp, so be very careful. And what you're going to do is, let me put my glasses on here, is you're actually going to raise your nozzle up until it's high enough where you can get this under there. You may have to use 2 hands to line it up nicely. And you're basically just going to put it right inside the nozzle. Let me see if I can get it here. There we go. Sort of. Not going to quite go. So once it's heated, you're going to go right inside the nozzle. And you're going to push it up, but you don't have to push it up far. Definitely don't push it up far. I actually wouldn't push it up further than just that little bit right there. And you're just going to unclog it, just kind of like, you know, move it around and so forth. And then you might at that point see some coming out. And if once you do that, then you could turn your filament wheel and see if you could have some come through. If this won't turn, go through your menu and choose disable your steppers. And then you could turn it. If it still doesn't, I would try this a few more times and see if you can get it unclogged. And most of the time that works. You just got to kind of do it maybe once or twice. And, you know, once it starts coming out fine, just keep it coming for a little bit, you know, maybe that much. And that will get it unclogged. And you might find that often with not so much PLA filament, but like I have a wood filament that I use. It's a percentage of wood fill. Clogs all the time. Don't know why, what the problem is. I don't know if it just dries in there or what it is, but I think part of it is it doesn't heat back up like PLA does as well. So you'll find that on your off filament. I don't have the problem with PETG either. It's just the weird things, like sometimes the silk filament, definitely the wood filament. So that's what your needles are for, is to help unclog your nozzle. And basically, like I said, don't put it in much further than your nozzle, because all you're going to do at that point is just go up into the filament, which you don't want to do. You just want to unclog the tip here. And the reason for heating it is because it's going to heat up all of that so it's soft, and then you're just going to move it all around, heat it all up, and hopefully it's just going to push that through. And how you'll know too is you'll see it, and then you might see a little pop or something pop out, and then it'll start flowing good. So that's what the needles are for. Put these back. The next thing I want to discuss is changing the nozzle. And this one is a little more pickier than doing the other things. You should not have to do this that often. You know, I know some people that say they haven't changed theirs for years. I personally have changed mine more times than, more than 5 times than that there. I've actually replaced the heat ends also, and that's because I was printing something like PETG that pretty much just made a mess, and you know, if it goes up inside. But so I'm going to walk you through briefly how to replace the nozzle on your printer. So first thing I want to show you is, I'm going to turn this around here for you. It's really actually easy to do, but you got to be very careful because you're going to be working with it heated up. So get your Allen wrench, and you're going to just take off this one screw, the one right between the wheels here. You only need to take off that one screw. So we're just going to unscrew that. That's the screw I want you to see. And then I'm going to turn this back around so you can see now again. So not light. And then you're just going to kind of wiggle this and kind of push that way a little bit. And then just kind of wiggle it a little bit. It's going to come off. It will. There you go. Pull forward in that way. And then just move it over out of the way. Now, the tweezers are good for all kinds of things, including pulling the screws out and getting the little things off of here. Now, when you take this off, also, you may notice that when you take, there's a boot here that I was talking about, the boot comes off, you're going to notice there's maybe a lot of stuff on here, and that's what the tweezers are going to be really good for, to pick that stuff off. Maybe you could do that once you get it unclogged, or if you have, sometimes it may back up, the filament may break loose and they just go up into here, which happens to me sometimes, and that's what the tweezers are for, to get this stuff off of the hot end. Also from for your prints too. So what's important here is, get the fan out of the way. We need to heat this up to about 200 degrees Celsius, and that's how we're going to take it out. And it's not always the easiest to do. The first thing I would recommend is to heat it up and then back up your filament. You know, one way it goes down, and the next way it comes up, and I would back it up a little bit because you don't want it coming out as you pull this out, because then you're going to have a big mess. I like to back the filament up, just a little bit, not much, just to make sure there's no pressure on it. And then once it's heated, you are going to need a wrench. The little wrench that came with it. Whoops. Yeah, this is not fun. And this goes right around the nozzle. Now mine's really dirty, so it's not going to fit very well, but that's what the wrench is for. Okay, we then got the other wrench. Now what you're going to do is, this wrench is going to go right around your nozzle, and that's what you're going to use to unscrew it. Now you might find that as you're trying to unscrew the nozzle, you might find that as you're turning it, it's not coming off as easy as you want it to, and the whole thing is turning, and you don't want to break it, and it may be stiff to come off at first. So I recommend grabbing an open-end wrench, and I personally whoops, just put it on there enough, not tight enough, just enough to hold it so that when you try and turn your nozzle, I know this is a pain, when you try and turn your nozzle, that it's not turning this with it. Now don't put it on this side, because this side is your heating element, or your thermistor, which tells the temperature of it. Plus, there's a heat thing there as well. So you don't want to damage anything over there. So you just want to put this just so it rests over top of it. That's it. And turn this here for you sideways so you can see. Again, you're just putting the pliers just so it rests there, so that when you try to unloosen that, the whole thing doesn't turn. And then you'll notice that it will come off, and it's super hot, so be very careful. So once you hold that, once it starts to loosen up, then you can just use your little wrench and get it unscrewed. When it comes off, it's going to drop on the plate. Careful, it's super, super hot. Then you're going to take your other piece and you're going to put it up in, and then you have about, I would say about 3 or 4 seconds before it gets hot. So you can put that up in there, tighten it right on. Basically what you're doing is this here, you're holding on to the block, and then you have your wrench underneath that is, whoops, that is unloosening it, and then once it comes off, you're putting your other nozzle back in. And it's actually very simple. Let me see if I can get this one off. Oh yeah, this one came right off. Perfect, perfect. It comes right off. You take your next piece, and when it's in there, remember it's hot, you got only a couple seconds. Just put it up in there, and once you get it started, which I can't even get it, there we go. Once you get it started, it's gonna be warm. Be careful again, it's gonna be super hot. And then once it gets snug, really, really important, this is brass. You do not wanna over tighten. You wanna snug it up, but you don't wanna under snug it, you don't wanna over snug it. So there's like a happy medium. If you put it too tight, what's gonna happen is you're gonna break the nozzle piece off inside here, and then you gotta replace your whole hot end, which is really not that big of a deal, but you don't have to do that. So just snug it up. It doesn't need to be really hard, just needs to be snug, and that's it. So there's that, and don't forget to put your boot back on as well. So let's put this back together. Let's say that we did this. I'm gonna put my boot back on here. The open end of the boot goes that way because that's where the wires come in. And just make sure that it's up around it. And this back part here is a little tricky. If you can see that. Back part here is a little tricky, so that's going to go there. And then this is going to come back around. And just hold your 2 fingers on the wheels here. And there's a little hook here, as you can see, and it goes inside the frame piece. And let's get it in there. Just like that. And then take your screw. Very carefully. Put that back on. It's not always the easiest. But there you go. And so now let's turn this back around. Okay, basically what we've done is we went over keeping the bed clean, which is super important. You know, cleaning the nozzle if you have to, keep it brushed off. Unclogging your nozzle if you find that, you know, stuff is just not coming out anymore or not coming out correctly. And also, you know, taking off the fan, replacing the nozzle, and you know, it's really good to keep up on the maintenance. It's super important to keep it clean because, you know, you're trying to print really nice, precise things, and it's kind of the nature of the beast, like anything else, and everything needs maintenance. So I hope that helps everyone to keep their machine clean, maintained. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. And that is it. Have a good day. Jungle.